This video presentation is under Group 6 with the title of New Historicism and Cultural Materialism. Now let's define the meaning of New Historicism. If a person was to use this kind of theory, the first thing that he must do was to search for the historical background of the author. This will help him understand the literary piece made by that person. Now the question is, what kind of history should I search? Because history is a broad concept. Bear in mind that New Historicism focuses on the upper class, on the social hierarchy. So what are those? These are the churches. This is the political science, the kind of government used before, the institution, and the social power within the culture of that person, of that author. Now, what is the purpose of searching this historical background? It is because the author's concept of mind reflects his social environment before. The social environment is his basis in making this literary piece. So, his surrounding reflects how he writes this literary piece you were about to criticize. If you are not familiar of the social environment he had at that time, at that period of time when he made this literary piece, you'll get confused because you're not familiar. So, all in all, New Historicism is for a reason. Reading or criticizing a literary piece reveals some history before. It reveals the representations of marginalized group and non-normative behaviors. New Historicism also acknowledges that as time changes, so will our understanding of great literature. This is the meaning and the definition of the New Historicism.
Good morning and welcome to Cultural Materialism. Cultural materialism emphasizes studying the historical context, looking at those historical aspects that have been discarded or silenced in other narratives of history. Just like, for example, Philippine history, there were so many events or facts in the past that happened that were not included in the text or books that we are reading right now. And that only shows that our political and ideological systems manipulate images and text of the past to serve their own interests. Yeah, there were so many authors writing about our Philippine history who are manipulating the text. I mean, if they do not like the idea, they're going to change it in a way that they will like it. So they manipulate the idea to serve their own interest. And these images and text can be interpreted from alternative and radically different perspectives. And yet, because of the manipulation that is going on, there is now a misunderstanding or misconception about what really happened in our Philippine history. Cultural materialists analyze the processes by which hegemonic forces in society appropriate canonical and historical important texts such as Shakespeare and Austen, and utilize them in an attempt to validate or inscribe certain values on cultural imaginary. So, if you're just going to read a historical book or a historical text, it will be hard for the reader to picture the events that happened in the past. So, through Shakespeare and Austen's work, like Romeo and Juliet by Shakespeare, we will be able to picture the events that happened in the past. It will help us imagine the events that happened in the past. So, and cultural materialists deal with specific historical documents and attempt to analyze and recreate and recreate the zeitgeist of a particular moment in history. So with the help of the specific historical events that they have gathered, they will now use that to analyze and recreate beliefs of a particular moment in history. So with the help of those documents, they will now be able um, to know the beliefs and ideas of a particular moment in history. That's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Rachel Rivera and today I will be discussing about the similarities of New Historicism and Cultural Materialism. New Historicism and Cultural Materialism seek to understand literary texts historically. Also, New Historicism and Cultural Materialism reject the formalizing influence of previous studies, which includes New Criticism, Structuralism, and Deconstruction. Both are also interested in bringing lost memories and in exploring mechanisms of repression and subjugation. When we say repression, it is the action of bringing someone or something by force, and when we say subjugation, it is the action of bringing someone or something under control. That's it for the similarities of New Historicism and Cultural Materialism. For the differences, it will be further discussed by my groupmates.
The major difference is that new historicists tend to concentrate on those at the top of the social hierarchy. For example, the church, the monarchy, and the upper classes, while cultural materialists tend to concentrate on those at the bottom of social hierarchy. For example, the lower classes, women, and other marginalized peoples. New historicists tend to draw on the disciplines of political science and anthropology, given their interest in governments, institutions, and culture, while cultural materialists tend to rely on economics and sociology, given their interest in class, economics, and commodification. New historicists generate apolitical readings in which there is no question of agency on the part of the marginalized, while cultural materialists are consciously political and aiming at transforming the social order as they seek um, readings that focus on marginalized and the exploited. Cultural materialism has been equated with new historicism because both practices interpret literary texts as historical and cultural artifacts. Cultural materialism um, takes on a much more confrontational tone and radical character than new historicism. And new historicism concerns itself with better understanding the past for the sake of academic interest, while cultural materialist or I mean cultural materialism concerns itself with better understanding the political present as mediated through the past for the sake of changing the present.
The ideology of New Historicism. What do we mean by ideology? Ideology means a system of ideas and ideals, especially one which forms the basis of economic or political theory and policy, or in other terms, belief. New historicists tend to follow the post-Lacanian and post-Marxist view of ideology, rather than the ideology as false consciousness, as something that is obscuring one's perception of the truth. Also, new historicists argue that to recognize your own ideology is like pushing the bus you're riding on, since it is so much a part of the way you perceive the world and its workings. New historicists also acknowledge that their own criticism contains biases that derive from their historical position and ideology.
Now let's go on some new historicists and cultural materialists. Aside from Stephen Greenblatt, who first coined the term New Historicism, we have Louis Montrose, who was another major innovator and exponent of New Historicism, wherein he described the movement as an intellectual belief in the textuality of history and the historicity of text. When we say textuality of history, it refers to the fictionality and constructedness of history, while on historicity of text, it refers to the cultural specificity and social embedment of all model of writings. Now let's go to the materialist, or cultural materialist to be exact. Raymond Williams. He is the one who coined the term cultural materialism. And according to him, culture is neither a mere reflection of that base nor wholly independent of it. It means it does not roll out intentional human practice, but rejects the idealist position in seeing that practice as inseparable from specific historical conditions. And with culture not wholly determined by an economic base, it plays its own role in the construction or reproduction of the social totality, and inevitably becomes the site of the ideological struggle. Thank you.
Okay, so let us also try to discuss what hegemony is. According to the dictionary, hegemony is the influence or control over another country. Okay, while in here it says that hegemony is the process by which dominant culture maintains its dominant position. Well, we could say that this has something to do with power. This actually talks about those who are in power, who is making ways and means in order for them to maintain their position. Okay, example is the use of institution in order to formalize a power. Okay, in here we all know that the institution is prepared or it is made by the government, right? So we could say that the constitution is the ways and means. The government, they are considered as the dominant culture. So the dominant culture, which is the government, is using or creating the institution which would help them to maintain their power. As well, they influences us. Okay, another example is the mobilization of a police force as well as military personnel to subdue opposition. So we consider also this mobilization as the ways and means in order for these personnels to maintain their power in subduing the opposition. Okay, they would be able to maintain their power and they would be able to maintain as well their position. That is what hegemony is. These are the processes or the ways and means in order for those who are in power to maintain their position. Next is the power. Let us also discuss what power is. Okay. It is a way of acting upon acting subject or acting subjects by virtue of their acting or being capable of action. This is according to Foucault. So let us try to break this down in order for us to understand more the meaning of power. In his work, Foucault argues that power is not merely physical force, but a pervasive human dynamic determining our relationships to others. So it says here that power helps us to determine our relationship with one another. Okay, so this means that someone has power over you, and you probably have a power over someone else. How is this? Let us try to think of our parents. Okay, our parents has a power over us, their children, right? And with their children also, we probably have a power over someone else as well. For example, with over our siblings, or over some of our friends, or so forth and so on. That's it. There has been a relationship between someone over someone. Okay. Example, when you are inside the classroom, think of how would you act when you are alone, comparing it when you are with someone else. Okay. Well, of course, when we are alone, we would totally act differently. Such that if we are alone, we could do whatever we wanted to do. But then, while we are with someone else, we are already conscious of how we act. Okay. So that's it. That is how power determines our relationship with one another, and of course within ourselves. Next is power is not also necessarily bad, since it can also be productive. Yes, this is true, because great power comes a great responsibility. Okay, you try to think of this. For example, assigning a certain people the power to organize an activity. Or, for example, when you were given the power to organize an activity, of course, you should distribute the task to the persons whom you know who is capable of doing that certain task. If you know you in yourself that you cannot do the task, you should pass it over someone else whom you know could be a big help to finish the task. Okay? So, in short, give the power to the person who is or who could surely help in finishing the certain task or in accomplishing a certain task. Okay. Next is, we could also say that power is essential to a just society. All people exert a certain power over us insofar as we differ to their needs and desires. Well, take note of this statement. We differ to our needs and desires. So, this also mean that we cannot just do anything we wanted to do. Why? Because we might hurt others' feeling without us knowing how they feel. While, as I have said a while ago, we should observe or take note of our own differences, since we are all unique. We are all unique in our own ways. So, try to consider everyone's feelings. Okay. Next is power also refers to the ways in which a dominant group exerts its influence over others. Though this hegemonic power may rely on the threat of punishment, it does not necessarily rely on actual physical enforcement on a day-to-day basis. Well, we should take note that power influences us. As I have said a while ago in the hegemony, this is done with those who are in power, those who have power, the dominant ones. So, the power, it is really influenced by those dominant culture. So this could also refer to the rules, the laws which was made by the government. This could also influence us, whereas the laws and the rules could control our actions already. Okay, for example, in the middle of the night, you are driving a car, and along the street or along the road, you have seen a stoplight in there. What should you do? What should we do if you have seen, though you know that no one is looking or watching upon you? What should you do? Probably we would stop, right? We should know that there is a power within that rule, or there is a power within that sign, the stop sign. We should follow. Though no one is watching, though no one is following, though no one is looking at you, you should know that there is a power within that rule or within that law. So you should have to stop. You should follow. You stop because the rule says so, and the rule, there is a power within that. That was influenced by that was created by the dominant culture, which influences us. So let us try to follow everything. So let us use our own power in a fair and just way. Because that is not considered as power if you know you're doing that. If you're doing that while you know within yourselves that you're hurting someone else. So you let us all use this power within us in such a good way. So that is what hegemony and power is.